Hello and welcome to the Engerati studio, close to the end of the day of the third day of European Utility Week, and we've got a panel here on consumer engagement, customer engagement, call it what you will, and what we want to try and get out of this panel is bring to life some of the initiatives that utilities can take and what things look like, because I've had a lot of commentators sat in the chair on one-on-one interviews saying we need more consumer engagement, but when asked the question what does that look like, the answers were rather sparse and lacking a bit of depth, so hopefully we can bring that to life. But before we get started, I'm going to ask the panel to introduce themselves. So we're going to start with John from your side, from Opower. John, just tell us a little bit about you at the company and so on.
Sure. Good afternoon. John Webster. I'm Vice President of Marketing and Strategy at Opower. Opower in EMEA and APAC, that is. Opower provides, we work with around 95 utilities around the world. We provide consumer engagement platforms to those utilities, really to help them transform the way in which they engage with their consumers. As I said, we work with companies in Europe such as EDF and E.ON. We're very active in APAC, companies like China Light and Power and TEPCO. And of course, we have a very large customer base in North America. We've been in business for around almost 8 years now, I think. I think we're pretty well known around this event. I think we IPO'd about a year ago, well, less than a year ago, earlier this year. We're really enthusiastic to be at the event again this year, and it's really interesting to see how, as you say, consumer engagement is just increasing in terms of the focus of that topic of the event.
And you know, that depth of background qualifies you well to be here, but I'd like to pass on to John a little bit, and Deutsche Telekom, tell us a little bit about your interest in this area as well.
All right, yeah, thanks for having me. It's a great honor. My name is Kiessling. I work for Deutsche Telekom. I'm heading the international business development for the platform business of the smart home area. The internationalization meaning we started about 3 years ago with developing a platform which was commercially rolled out about a year ago in Germany, and we're just bringing that service across now to other countries, pan-Europe. Customer engagement, I think, is really what's key for understanding the needs of the individual, of the households, and therefore, I would say, the basis of providing meaningful and valuable services, which at the end creates that intimacy and it creates that closeness to prevent churn and to provide additional sources of revenue and positioning services into the home.
And if we can have your introduction, please.
Okay, hi everybody, thanks for your invitation. I'm Julien Metge from Netatmo, Head of Business Development, so I am in charge of partnership with utilities, with telcos as well, and with boiler manufacturers. So Netatmo is an Internet of Things company. We are based in Europe. We have introduced 2 products so far in smart home. One is a weather station and the other one is a smart thermostat by Stark. I'm very happy to be here to discuss about the customer engagement, because as a consumer electronic manufacturer, of course it means a lot to us to engage people and to create the desire for our products. And we are here to share this experience with utilities. And we really think that delivering our products and sharing the data and data usage with the maybe telcos and utilities may create new services and new products for the customer of utilities.
Okay, so we've heard the introduction, and you know, you've said it's you know, new services for the utilities, customer engagement. But each one of you have said, okay, we are doing customer engagement for the utilities. So I mean, one of the questions I've got is, does that actually mean that the utility sector doesn't know how to do customer engagement? I mean, is that what this is boiling down to? I mean, John, if I can bring you in, because you've come that.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a mixed bag. I mean, you've been here for many years now, I guess, this event, and talking to my colleagues who've been here, it's clear that the communication or the the level of awareness, should we say, about what needs to be done has increased. It's not really a debate anymore. It's about what to do, it's how to do, and where to start. Yeah, utilities, of course, have a reputation of not necessarily being hugely customer-centric organisations. We see a lot of should we say the forward-thinking utilities, the more forward-leaning utilities, those who have made a start already, changing that pretty rapidly, even down to the point of not just bringing new technologies and new strategies, but actually recruiting from more customer-centric industries into their company to try and change that culture and that ethos. So there are some success stories out there, and they have to. Clearly, they have to. I think maybe the culture for the larger utilities has been more slow-moving. There's some great examples. I don't know if you went to the Alex Lasky presentation earlier in the conference, but there was a couple of great quotes from the audience, one particularly around how the mentality of that utility may have in terms of very long pilot programs before they prove the concept, before they then deploy a strategy.
Which is antithesis to customer engagement. It's about rapid evolution, getting those feedback loops and things like that.
But there's not, I mean, this is also the great news for utilities is there are other industries who have been through this process, right? People talk about the telco industry, people talk about financial services that have used tools and techniques and used, digitization to completely transform the way they do engage with consumers. Not just because they know they have to, but consumers are demanding it. There's a whole new generation of consumers that expect this. So, utilities, I think the last point on this is really that utilities have a challenge to become more customer-centric, but they also have like a great opportunity because they already own the customer relationship, and they don't need necessarily to be too spooked, should we say, about certain kind of like more fatalistic viewpoints. They own the customer relationship already, and customers are looking to their utility provider to provide them the information, personalized usage, etc. They're looking to engage. So I think the opportunity is there, the relationship exists. I think utilities just need to act now.
John, can I ask you to add to that from the the smart home perspective as well, because there seems to be an obvious join that if you have a smarter home, then you can also start having the energy conversation as well as that connected home conversation, turning those things on and off.
Yeah, I'd like to add to what John said. The opportunity is there, and we see some very positive examples already out in the market that have started to engage by analyzing really the needs and the particular use cases to add, which are meaningful for the consumer. And I'd like to use the word customer to that. I think that's the first mind shift that needs to happen. It's not about participating or leveraging an energy service. It's understanding the customer, it's understanding the needs and what adds value to the individual needs. I think the positive examples in this environment shows that the use cases may vary from the simple expectation of a utility to provide renewable energy mix with the standard energy, but also to provide I would say a way forward, a future forward, beyond pure energy only. When we hear about the drivers in this industry, a lot of times it has to do with design of the devices themselves. If you deploy something in your home, if you build something in your home, you want it to match with your personal preferences. That can be budget preferences in terms of should not be too expensive, but there can be design factors as well. So the design of the devices that relate to providing the information has a lot to do with the actual use case behind it. In the telco industry, we have undergone quite a substantial mind shift by understanding and providing meaningful propositions towards the consumer. And these services need to relate to creating that value. What do I mean by that? I think today the utility is still thinking too much in a way of how can I make a business out of the smart home, rather than how can I provide that value, which will then create the business by its own. So I think customer engagement has a lot to do with analyzing what is the right proposition entering that space. Secondly, providing not only the energy but the tools around it and services that may be beyond that one particular need. So it can be an entry case of the expectation to save money, to save energy, but it also can be a security or just a simple comfort case that one may like. And I would say a utility is in the ideal position and has a right to play in the home and be there for good, but it needs to be closely linked to the needs of the individual home.
And so you've kind of teed me a little bit up a little bit for what you guys are doing from a device perspective, and the CEO of Nest was here and he explained his vision for the whole home and how that those home devices then connect back with the utility network. Can you just? I'd like you to crystallize potentially what some of the services are now that these connected devices are coming in, that utilities could potentially offer. What are the partnerships? Why are you seeking those partnerships, and what are you looking to deliver out of that?
First of all, as a smart thermostat is a good start because it's directly linked to the comforts and to the about piloting the heating equipment and to save energy. And as John said, there is a legitimacy for utilities to deliver some advice about that, and that's exactly what customers are expecting from the utilities. So it's a first module, first part, but they have to keep up thinking on adding new services and starting for the heating equipment. But for instance, you can go with maintenance services, and thanks to the smart thermostat, for instance, you can detect default of heating equipment. And that makes sense to make a bundle of energy delivering, comfort, piloting comfort at home, and also maintenance, remote maintenance, and value-added services for the maintenance. And then maybe you can extend at the next step to security, for instance, or other services at home.
Do you think that all of this is kind of predicated on the connected home and all of these devices in terms of these service deliveries? Because that's one of the other questions I ask is, utilities can deliver new services, and the answer to that question is somewhat fragmented. Well, what's your view on what do these new services look like?
One example can be the energy reports, and we already deliver with our retail shop version energy reports, but you can combine CRM data of utilities. You can also share the data with Opower, for instance, people. They can do analytics on top of smart thermostat usage, plus the CRM data of the customers from the utilities database, and this way you can deliver extended energy reports, and this can be branded by utilities, and this will be unique and differentiate tools for utilities. Because we, as device manufacturers, we cannot do that because we don't have CRM data, and we don't want to ask too much question for our customers. This is not our role, but utilities already have this kind of information. So it's all about how you combine the existing data of utilities and the data that comes from the use of smart thermostats.
John, can I bring you in on that angle? I'd like to, because again, one of my things about, you connect all these things up, and you've got someone who's a early adopter of technology like me. I can wire this stuff together myself. I don't need the utility to do it. But in the sort of conversations we've had from Opower, how does that join up?
Sure.
I think
Sure.
is what I'm.
By the way, tangentially slightly, your question is. I mean, that is a question that pretty much everyone's asking here, right? So, I agree with Julien. I think in terms of the opportunity, clearly, Wi-Fi-enabled thermostats have a role. Clearly, that device is here to stay. And there's a great opportunity for utilities to provide that into their consumer base. But I do think I don't think I have the answer for this. I don't think, not worryingly, but certainly I don't think the answer's been completely crystallized as to and maybe Jean, you have a view on this, as to what the connected home will look like in the end. I think there's great opportunity, and if people are just now putting models together. I think what I'll say is, I don't think it's a panacea. I do think that there's a lot of noise in this room, as well as in the market generally, about the opportunity for Wi-Fi thermostats, both those provided by, and we're agnostic. We have partnerships, obviously our utilities that we work with, our partnerships with hardware providers in terms of thermostats. We have our own partnerships as well, and we have open APIs on our platform which can work with pretty much any thermostat out there. So they're clearly part of our strategy and our utility partner strategy. I have to go back a little bit though and say, we don't necessarily need, or the utility doesn't necessarily need to answer that completely to get going. What percentage of their consumer base will buy a very good-looking, expensive thermostat from their retailer and put it on their wall? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how high that percentage is. Is there a bigger opportunity right now for the utility to engage their entire customer base through the channels that they prefer, be it paper, be it web, be it mix, be it SMS, be it email, of course, and start to build that relationship, build knowledge, start a two-way conversation, understand their consumers more, get close to a one-to-one kind of segment of one marketing approach.
And then get that
and from
data.
that, absolutely, then you can start to apply the right thermostat or the right other innovative service, innovative product to that consumer. So really it's kind of like, without that level of knowledge of your consumer base, I'm not really sure that the utility knows exactly what to offer their consumer. But there's clearly a place to start, and that is engage and engage now.
Yeah, and that's kind of on the smart home side of things as well. Is that exactly the same? And when you're looking at smart homes, where's the energy side of things in your smart home strategy and roadmap?
Yeah, from a Deutsche Telekom perspective, we believe that the magic word in this environment is partnering. Deutsche Telekom, for example, has its strength also in end customer propositions, but then there is the domain players that actually have not only the right to play, but who are actually the experts and potentially also regional, so on-site available. If you think of the need of the individual customer, you very rapidly come to the conclusion energy is a very big driver, particularly when it comes to optimization, but that starts with transparency of that power consumption or gas consumption, whatever it is. But the second level then is, what can I do about it? Once I understand where that power is consumed, so intelligent options by a system that automatically gives me options to operate and optimize that consumption is definitely of interest. Today we see a lot of solutions, single point solutions, that are all based on an application that you have to use your smartphone and your tablet, whatever it is, web interface. Frankly speaking, I think the mass market adoption will not necessarily be based on that interface only. There might be the television as a core interface as well. There might be...
Well, Samsung hopes so anyway.
For example, there might be no display interface at all because it's just intuitive. You might want to continue to switch your wall switches in your home and just plug into. So it needs to be an automated system that brings that intelligence. Now, what does that mean for the utility? The utility has a certain right and a certain core space to play, but there is edge cases where a utility can add services from other domains into their own core offering. And what do I mean about that? For example, integration of cameras, integration of response services in the security case. And that can be simple things like services around the household. You were asking the question earlier, what exactly can that meaningful, valuable services be? I think once you have the data, let's take the boiler business, for example, which is a big thing in the UK. You see the hype of Hive and the success it has, but automatically you're leaving the space of do-it-yourself installation. You might have to have an installer installing such a system, but once you get hooked up to that data, it gives you a variety of options of providing additional services. There can be things like blending it with an insurance for an extension of warranty of an individual investment you have made in the home. That can be providing a service upfront, proactively, when you don't even know that your boiler might break, but the system gives you that information, so your local service provider might be able to give you a call and offer you to fix their boiler before you even know it's broken. And when you get that call on a Friday afternoon and they tell you, we send you a technician so you will have hot water on the weekend, you're really going to like that service, so you're really going to love your utility for providing that service to you. So creating that value, creating that excitement about the service that the utility can give you, I think that's the core. As Deutsche Telekom, we believe that can only happen if your proposition as a utility is based on an open platform that gives you not only the energetic use case, but that also provides you a blend of services with other use cases, such as the security case or perhaps convenience if you think of the demographic development, I think wearables today are very hype on the one hand side, but when you think of healthcare products, they become very, very needed at some point in time. And if you can use your smart home system for your own benefit at home, and if you can use that system maybe interconnecting with the system of your parents' home, then it becomes personalized and it becomes very attractive in terms of giving you that good feel, not only about your own home, but also about the ones you like.
But John's right, though. You can't do any of this stuff without understanding your customer in the first place, because
Absolutely.
at the end of the day, I might be a great target audience for any single gadget that someone wants to throw at me, but my neighbor, who's 80 years old, man, it's not going to work there.
Right.
So we need that depth of knowledge.
Sorry, just to reinforce that for a second. There's energy for many people is quite a boring topic, and utilities understand that. So it's really good and really, you can see the excitement and the hunger for that model, to understand that model around providing a host of energy services and really becoming the connected home provider by the utilities. And clearly that's the direction. But to pick up a point you just said in terms of you need to understand your consumer, you need to understand for the vast majority of them it's a relatively boring topic to talk about their energy. And there's an Accenture study, I guess pretty much everyone's seen by now, which is around the average consumer in Europe, I think, thinks about their energy provider for no more than 9 minutes a year. So that's the base that we're building from. And those 9 minutes are not always necessarily, they're not thinking about the utility provider in a good way. It's bill shock moments, it's outage in some regions. So again, if you understand or if you as the utility understand that's the platform on which you are starting, and it's not necessarily about extending that 9 minutes, but it's about understanding those 9 minutes. What are they? When do we need to reach out proactively to the consumer?
Changing the experience of
changing. You yourself, I think, just before we came onto the video, we talked about I think DHL DHL opening their business model, so you could see where the package was as it meanders its way across the continent towards you. So DHL knew that they were the moments that you cared about. Where's my package? When's it going to be? When do I need to be at home to receive it? It's the same thing with utilities. What is is it the new mover experience? Is it when people move into their house for the first time? Is it around season change when they're getting close to winter? Is it around just bill ready moments? I mean, all these different instances where the consumer is going to think about you. You need to be on the front foot as a utility. You need to provide the information to the consumer when they want and how they want through the right channels. If you do that, and if you can start to convert those 9 minutes into positive experiences, that's when you can move forward, begin to market more effectively to the consumer, build a longer relationship, which, let's face it, as well as selling more services, innovative services to the consumer, a lot of the focus is around retention, churn reduction, acquisition boosting, which is the key challenge for utilities right now, especially when other competitors, smaller competitors, are coming into market.
Well, we
so
did a great webinar on that where the stats on just churn and the cost of acquisition.
So to sum up, really, the journey is understood, and it's really exciting for me personally to see the amount of recognition and relevance the kind of discussions we're having here has with the utility executives. But they realize where they're starting, and they really need to just take that step, engage with the consumer, provide the consumer with what they want during those 9 minutes, and then build from there to offer other additional services.
And as we're coming to the end of the time, I'll give you the last word. Can you tell us a little bit, Netatmo, from the device point of view? I mean, what are the other connections that you're looking to build with the utility sector as well? Other than, hey, sorry to be glib, sell my smart thing, as a channel.
Okay. So what we're trying to build is not at all just sell our device. As my colleague said, it's all about partnership. We're just a piece of the whole services. So we bring the device. It's a very important part of the user experience. And what we say, it's all about changing the user experience, not to, just receiving your energy bill every month. Is to start to receive some advice and new services and new experience with your utilities.
And what sort of stuff do you push back to utilities that allows them to kind of give back advice?
All the data of the usage, for instance, what is your comfort level, and if you combine, how many times you connect to the thermostat, which is your most frequent features with the thermostat, what are the feedback, because we can ask also to the customer what they like in the device, what they don't like, how they use it. You can also combine with the weather map data. For instance, we have a map in the whole Europe providing temperature, humidity, and now rainfall. And it's all about giving tool for utilities to actually analyze how the weather influences the customers.
Your device will react to weather patterns and...
Actually, they will just measure, and we share these measurements with the utilities. So again, they better understand the customer, and they can, for instance, it's raining, and with a smart home solution, then you can close the windows and start to heat it up a little bit more your apartment, for instance.
So to kind of sum it up, this is the sense I get, is that actually the ability to deliver extra services, the world's your oyster. You can almost dream up anything. You've got open APIs. There's, you know, the three of you could join things up pretty quickly. But the message, and I am going to put words in all our mouths, is that the utility needs to first start. You know, start simple, keep it basic, get an understanding of your customer, talk to partners, and you know, and I'm sure you guys can share sort of, hey, hang on, if you've got people that look like this, they will have our service, and that's how this is going to evolve. I think you said it rightly. I don't think we've got a silver bullet, and that's kind of what I wanted to tease out here as well. So, well, thank you all for joining. These things are always hard to do. I hope we got a message across here, and thank you as well for watching. And we're going to try below this to kind of aggregate some of these points, because there's depth of thing here, and we're going to be old-fashioned, and we're going to write that up. So here's the written word. So thank you very much for watching.